My name is Ishmael Beah. I am from Sierra Leone. I was born in Sierra Leone in West Africa. And I'm a writer, and my first book is called A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier, which talks about my experiences in the civil war we had in Sierra Leone. How I went into the war, how I came out of the war, and all of that in details. And then my second book is a novel, which is called Radiance of Tomorrow, that talks about why people go back after war and can they go back to the way their lives had been. So in short, this is who I am. I had always wanted to write after A Long Way Gone came out, but the book took such a stronger life of its own and a bigger life of its own that I didn't have time for many years. I was constantly on the road. It got translated in over 40 languages. And so as I was traveling with that book, the idea to write a novel came into my head because I realized that most people were not asking the question about Sierra Leone anymore, like what was going on in Sierra Leone after the war. The interest was more, as soon as the war ended, particularly in the media, the interest stopped. So I wanted to write a novel that discussed that. You know, how do you go back? What does that feel like? How do you try to rebuild a life? What traditions do you embrace? Which ones do you throw out? How do you become a mother, a father, a grandmother, a child in Sierra Leone post-war? You know, so these are the questions that were in my head, and I tried to answer them through the novel, through a series of characters in Radiance of Tomorrow. When I decided to write a novel, I knew that I would play with form and language a lot more than I could with a memoir. And the idea was also that I wanted to invite the reader into this world that I was describing so that they can feel as though they were sitting around a fire and being told a story. So, and also I had a lot of characters in the book who are older, and older people speak with a lot of eloquence and grace and use languages in a more interesting way. So I knew also I had to do that. So, you know, so when I had thought of the story, I think the form made sense. And that I will bring people to this world, to this language, to the culture, the beauty and the difficulties of it, but intimately. You know, I always, as a writer, I always feel you have to invite the reader intimately to the experiences of the characters. Well, when I was writing, of course, the musicality and the way the people's mannerisms are and the characters, you can feel that you are in another place, that you are not in France or in any European country. But also, when I was writing, all the characters were speaking to me in Mende, so which is my mother tongue, which is one of the many languages in Sierra Leone. And so for me to find the English equivalent of what they were saying was a lot of work because sometimes there were no words in English to explain what I wanted to explain. So then what I would do is try to find a series of images that then would evoke that feeling that I wanted in the reader. Mende is a very colorful, beautiful language. It's spoken without trying. In a way that it sort of really captures the imagination of the listener. You know, I give an example. For example, when I was writing, if I had a choice between saying the children were kicking around a ball, which in English is a ball, which doesn't do much for the imagination, but in Mende, a ball means a nest of air, or a vessel that carries air. So then I will say, okay, I will use the second one because, of course, then somebody will stop. If I say the children were kicking around a vessel that carries air, then people are going to be like, oh, this is interesting, you know, because that's how we call a ball. Because when we describe things, we describe the components of things, not just the thing itself. So when I'm writing, that's constantly the the work, and I love it. You know, I get to rediscover my own language, but I also get to discover how to use English in a better way. You know, in my own. In which language do I dream? Well, it depends on where I am, actually. I find that sometimes I will dream in Mende when I miss home a lot, or maybe when I've just spoken to my grandmother. Then if I dream that night, it will be in Mende. Otherwise, I will dream in English, you know. So I go between English and Mende when I dream. But I remember the first time that when I started living in the United States many years ago. Prior to that, I'd only dreamt in Mende. And the first time that I dreamt in English, I remember I was very uncomfortable. I woke up and I felt not settled within myself. But then I knew it's because I was now living in another culture. And that culture was taking root inside me, whether I liked it or not. So then the next day, I think I cooked myself some African dish and started to eat it. I thought, okay, let's get some Africanness back in there, you know. But yeah, it depends on who I am. I dream in different languages, but yeah.